That's obviously going to take a minute, so let's break down some sinew and make some thread. This stuff obviously comes from an animal, so we're a little bit at a later stage within this process. If you want to see where this comes from and how to extract it, check the link in the corner. Now, these are a little shorter because they've come from deer hocks, which is just basically from the hoof to the knee joint of the deer. Better to work with the sinew running down the back of the animal, as it will be longer, but this is fine to work with. Just a little bit more of effort. So let's get into breaking this down and making our thread. And it's gone from mid-May snowfall to nice outside. I blame Al Gore. So we're going to move this ape train outside of the cabin and into the outside. More rocky, smashy, smashy. Let's throw it down on a bigger rock, take the smaller rock, and then we're going to smash these fibers to loosen them up. I don't know if that's showing up on camera, but it's funny how the sun came out and we're back to snowfall. Kind of iconic that the more you get into primitive aspects of bushcraft, the more slamming rocks together comes into play. Okay, so once you've got this all broken down into pliable fibers, you just want to prise them apart into strands you can work with in connecting all of these together in order to make your thread. Okay, so now that you've got this broken down into this, you're just going to take just 2 of these strands to begin with and find the end of it and just do a little bit of mastication, some light chewing, and make some saliva in there. You're going to want to wet both ends. Gamey. Now that you've got your ends wet, they're going to be a lot more pliable. Just want to take them and overlap the 2 on the line and then twist them away from you and back towards you, back and forth, back and forth. What this does, the whole wetting and mastication of it, is rehydrating the sinew tissue. And then as it dries, it creates this amazingly tight bond between the 2 strands, which is going to be really hard to pull apart. Just stepping outside to the Jeep for a second so we can illustrate some of what that sinew does. So these threads can also be wrapped around objects, and when they solidify, as it does also create hide glue when further broken down and boiled, they solidify into this tight binding lashing that adheres to the object. Here you can see it in use on our microcordage wrap, bookending it on the boar tooth that our guide gave us out in the cartel mountain villages of Ellicothe. If you haven't seen that video, you can check that link out up in the corner as well. We should really start learning to look in the mirror more often. And just continue down your line. Now that you've got your longer workable line, it's time to twist braid it into a durable thread, because all of these little joint points you've done on these ones, they're still a little bit fragile. So when passing through certain materials, it will break. So you find your middle, you take and make a loop, just a tiny one, pinch it down, moisten your fingers, give it a bit of a wet, and give it a bit of a twist. Now with the 2 lines separated, you'll want to go ahead to the top, making sure, again, it's moistened, so it has more stick to it and it'll bond better while you do this. And then you want to take the top line, twist it away from yourself, take the other line, and just wrap it over. Twist away, wrap away. Twist away, wrap it together. And just continue this all down your line until eventually you end up with this thread that's doubled up, that's bonded together and gives you a more thorough, stronger strand. In a lot of cases, you'll end up with tail ends a little off. You can finish this and then cut it off. Or in this case, if you wanted to lengthen it and make your thread longer, you just take one of your other ends, that are loose and splice it right in there, following our initial process of wetting both ends and rolling them together like that. Now you have all of this extended, spliced in length that you can continue moving down. Let's go check on our bone fragments. Find one that's closest to your needle shape you're looking for. Traditionally, this would get filed down on the sharp edge of a rock, adjusting in place onto flatter surfaces, just to get this whole thing shaped out into your sharp needle point. A sharpening stone also works pretty good. Let's not be knife shy. And behold the irony of modern technology on a heritage skill set. Just takes you a quarter of the time this way. With that done, now we need to make the hole for the thread to go through. For that, we're just going to use our little hand drill. I'm not sure how they would have done it traditionally. I'm sure it could be looked up. But this thing is pretty amazing. Comes with all of these little needle bits that just vise into this. And then as you're holding it, placing pressure on the back with your palm, this guy rotates on a swivel, allowing you to drill through the bone. And you're just going to want to scratch in a little indent, kind of like making a start point with an awl, so that you can actually get that purchase and your hole started. Now when tying your thread off through the needle, you're going to want a single strand knot this guy, because it is sort of awkward thread in that it doesn't keep a consistency of width all the way through. These little frayed parts you can wet down and roll, as we mentioned earlier. So you want to make a loop in your thread, find the needle hole, and you want to compress that loop and push it through the hole. Now once it's through, you just want to pull it down to the point where you still have the two thread ends out on the other end, just so that you can put the needle through the loop, and then you pull on your longer end to create the knot around the needle. Now you don't want this at the sides or at the edge, you want it at the end so it can pass through whatever you're sewing nicely. This little extra part should be okay, but you could cut it off a little lower and then begin your sewing process.